When I'm looking on, let's go on. Verse 17 to 22, and Paul is describing, I see here, the church as a temple being built on Jesus, containing people of every nation. Verse 21, in whom the whole building is joined together. Oh, building, eh? So I'm thinking of Diana of the Ephesians as well. But I mean, he tells us a little bit about all of this. Why does he use this kind of image, do you think, Jenny?
Well, I think it's amazing to think that we as believers are a building built for the unspeakable privilege of housing God. That's incredible. I mean, maybe in the Old Testament, God dwelt in tents. You mentioned the tabernacle a moment ago. And I think it's in, 2 Samuel chapter 7. He even says, why do you want to build me a house? But now, God delights to house himself in the hearts of his family. And as far as the temple goes, there's no more temple of the Jews, or no more court of the Jews, no more court of the Gentiles, no more court of women. No, we are all reconciled not only to God, but we're reconciled to each other. And I think that's the pretty awesome thing. As Paul said, it's not so much of an individual salvation. We are saved to be part of a body, this great building. We are living stones who have this unspeakable privilege of housing the Spirit of the living God. Sometimes when I pray, Richard, and I'm confessing my sins, I will say to the Lord, oh, Jesus, how can you bear to live next to me in my heart? You're smack dab up against my sin. Please eradicate it, uproot it. I know you do not want to dwell next to it. And I often think about Jesus just dwelling in my heart as he does in the hearts of all believers.
Yeah. And again, I once went into a Maasai house, a Maasai dwelling in East Africa. I'd never been to one before because I was brought up among the Kikuyu people. The Maasai were then absolutely distant. They were distanced from anything to do with Christianity or Western civilization or anything. But the whole village had gone Christian. And a man said to me, would you like to come into a Maasai house? I went into this place, which is, well, it's like that, just like an igloo, but made of mud. And it was there. They're very proud of this tradition. I went in, it was pitch dark, windows about that size, you could just let the smoke out. And inside there, I was having fellowship with these dear people. They'd been reconciled too. And they didn't even have a church to go to. They had a tree. Somebody would say, come to my tree next Sunday. Somebody else would say the following Sunday, you can come to my tree this time. Like that. But they were built in.
And reconciled to each other.
Absolutely fabulous truth that we're looking at right here. We're looking at verses 1 to 6 now of chapter 3, where Paul speaks of this word mystery that has long been hidden. Then he tells us what it is. Oh, theologian, what is this revealed mystery?
Well, it is fun, isn't it? He talks about a mystery and you think, oh, he's not going to say, and then he says, oh, I'll tell you what it is. And it's in verse 6. This mystery is that through the gospel, the Gentiles are heirs together with Israel, members together of one body, sharers together in the promise in Christ Jesus. Because you think all the way through, I mean, of course, Abraham was a Gentile. He was an Iraqi from, an ancient Babylonian in that way. So in that way, he's a Gentile. But then after that, you think all these long centuries, if you'd been an Egyptian or something, you would have had to become a Jew in order to be saved.